Hi, Bastille. If you're watching this, you probably accepted my video. This is the second time I'm doing it, and I just wanted to say sorry and thank you. How are y'all doing, ladies and gentlemen? It's Jackson Cole, and I'm here to teach you anything you know. You know, this is the show you come to learn anything. All right, today, what is it? Oh, okay, I'm going to teach you how to be a player. Wait, you know that our demographic is 50% 8-year-olds, right? Oh, plants! All right, let's get started on that. Alrighty, we're going with the plant systems. Well, first of all, do you ever wonder what a moss is called? Well, it's a bryophyte. And you know that mosses you see in the forest are actually called bryophytes? Well, bryophytes are a type of non-vascular plant that draw up water by using osmosis. One of the more well-known plants within this group are species of moss. Well, osmosis is the process by which molecules of a solvent tend to pass through a semi-permeable membrane from a less concentrated solution into a more concentrated one. This is the one on the left is an example of the moss. Well, if you were wondering what a non-vascular plant was, is that non-vasculars have no transport system and they grow very close to the ground, like the common plants you see day to day. Well, vascular plants are more like the trees you see in the forest that can grow very tall and need water to survive. Plants over the years have adapted many evolutionary systems that allow them to survive a lot longer and through more difficult times. Well, an advantage of an evolutionary advance is the vascular system, which is the xylem and the phloem. The xylem and the phloem are two different types of transport tissue. The xylem transports water and solutes from the roots to the leaves, and the phloem transports food from the leaves to the rest of the plant. Another advance is a seed. Well, as the plant grows and begins to make its own food from nutrients it takes from the soil, it will grow into a larger plant. The seed itself is like a survival package. The three things plants need to grow are light, food, and water. Seeds contain food for young plants until it fully develops for photosynthesis, and the embryo is protected by a tough seed coat. Seeds may have adaptations for dispersal, depending on what type of seed it is. Another type of seed is a seed that is enclosed in fruit, which is called an angiosperm. Angiosperms are flowering plants the seeds are enclosed in fruit, like this apple you see here. Well, the fruits aid in the spread of the seeds as animals eat them and give voice to the seeds around the forest and around nature. Another evolutionary event that a plant has is a flower. The primary purpose of a flower is reproduction. Since the flowers are the reproductive organs, they mediate the joining of the sperm contained within pollen to the ovules. And pollination is the movement of pollen from the anthers to the stigma. And the final advance is the stomata and the guard cell. The guard cells are the cells surrounding each stoma. They help to regulate the rate of transpiration by opening and closing the stomata in light. Guard cells take up water by osmosis. Because their inner walls are so rigid, they are pulled apart, opening the pore. In darkness, water is lost and the inner walls move closer. They move together, closing the pore. This is an example of the guard cells and the stoma opening and the stoma closing. The three main types of plant tissue is the epidermis, vascular tissue, and ground tissue. The epidermis is cells forming the outer surface of the leaves and of the young plant body, up here. The vascular tissue is the primary components of vascular tissue are the xylem and the phloem. These transport fluid and nutrients internally. The ground tissue is the less differentiated than the other tissues. Ground tissue manufactures nutrients by photosynthesis and stores reserved nutrients. The process of transpiration is by which moisture is carried through plants from roots to small pores on the underside of leaves, where it changes to vapor and is released to the atmosphere. Transpiration is essentially evaporation of water from plant leaves. But the importance of transpiration for the plants is that it creates a negative pressure gradient that helps draw water and minerals up through the plant to its roots. So the plants actually have two different functions of the male and female reproductive organs. The male reproductive organs are the anther and the filament. Well, the anther and the filament, the anther produces pollen grains and the filament supports the anther above the female reproductive organs. The female reproductive organs, or the carpel, is the stigma, which is the sticky landing site up at the top here for the pollen grains from the anther, and the style is the tube that leads down to the ovary, and the ovary contains the ovules that develop into seeds, right in there, that little green circle. Well, the reproductive parts that from outer to inner are the ovary is the most inside because it is the inside of the plant. That is the little bulb on the underside. And the second most outer part is the carpel because it is the inside of the flower, these petals. And then the petals are the third that wrap around and protect the petals and the different parts of the plant. And then the stamen is the green undersides under the actual flower. Well, there's another type of flower or plant that is called an angiosperm, and these are the flowers. They are the most successful land plants because their ability to flower sets them apart from non-flowering plants, also known as gymnosperms, allowing them a successful means of reproduction. If you look closely into the flowers, you can see the trademark characteristics of angiosperms, including stamens, carpels, and tiny pollen grains. The difference between monocots and dicots is actually a pretty huge difference. Monocots, floral parts usually in multiples of 3, and dicots are usually in multiples of 4 or 5. And the dicot root part is more of a tap root, and the monocots have a fibrous root system. Have you ever wondered how a seed grows into a plant? Well, that's called seed germination. Seed germination depends on both internal and external conditions. The most important external factors include the right temperature, the right amount of water and oxygen, and sometimes it depends on light or darkness. It varies depending on the species of plant. So we talked about angiosperms. Let's talk about gymnosperms now. Gymnosperms, they do not produce flowers. They do not produce fruits, and they are only pollinated by the wind, and they do not have an outer covering or a shell around their seeds. Plants can adapt to their environment in many ways. A response to this environment is called a tropism. The first up on the list is gravitropism, also known as geotropism. It is a turning or growth movement by plant or fungus in response to gravity. It is a general feature of all higher and many lower plants as well as other organisms. This occurs because of the plant hormone also called auxin, which plays in part of gravitropism. The next up is phototropism. This is the orientation of a plant to another organism in response to light, either towards the source of the light or away from it. Plants usually display a positive phototrophic response to light, which means they grow towards the light source. Plant hormones called auxins play a big part in phototropism because it prompts the plants to move towards the light. Last up is thigmotropism. It's the turning or bending of a plant or other organisms in response to a touch or stimulus. Plants use hormones to grow in response to a contact stimulus, for example, in the climbing plants such as those found on trails or along fences. The hormone that stimulates growth for this is also called auxin. Well, I've talked about auxin, and you may be wondering what this is. Well, auxin is the first group of plant hormones that was discovered by scientists in 1926. Auxin is mainly present in the form of IAA acid in plants. Next up is gibberellin. Gibberellin is a group of plant hormones that promotes plant growth mainly through cell elongation. The levels of organization in plant species are almost exactly like those of a human cell to human body system. An example is the chloroplast, to the mesophyll tissue, to the stomata, to the taro leaf, aka the elephant ear. This is an example of a lower level to highest level of organization in a plant species. Cells are an amazing thing in plants. Cells over the millions of years have adapted and fit for a certain role. Cell specialization, also known as cell differentiation, is the process by which generic cells change into specific cells meant to do certain tasks within the body. An example is a root cell that absorbs dissolved minerals and water from the ground. Root cells grow in long lengths called root hairs in order to increase the surface area of the root system. This also helps anchor the plant. Another example is a leaf cell. These cells found in leaves are highly specialized, and there are many different types. Column-shaped palisade cells are found near the surface of the leaf, and they are full of chloroplast ready to capture energy from the sun. A human specialized cell is a red blood cell that are found in animals. That transport oxygen throughout the body. Since transport is their primary function, they do not need a nucleus. They lack a nucleus to give more space for the hemoglobin. And the final example is the muscle cell that is long and fibrous and has the ability to contract. They allow animals to move and allow their organs to function in circulation as well as digestion. Muscle cells are made up of two special types of protein called actin and myosin. Well, that is it for the Plant System show. I hope you all enjoyed, and thank you for watching. Tune in next time. See ya!